Morning, everybody. Pay no attention to the fishing rods in the background. I am going to work. So, or my fishing shirt, it's actually covered in paint. First off, want to say, hope everyone's doing well. Had a bunch of beautiful days of weather up here in New Hampshire, and been talking to a couple people about the fact that there's been no chemtrails, and even my parents, like I said, that don't believe any of this stuff. As of 10 years ago, I was telling them about chemtrails, and now they actually can tell when they feel terrible based on the level of chemtrailing the night before. I don't know the reason particularly why there has been no chemtrails for about a week and a half. It's not just here, it's at other places in the country as well, from the people I've talked to. And there's a few reasons. One main reason might be that I think this is the actual reason, is Congress just talked about there's a large amount of alien activity reported by the Air Force recently. Many of the older prophetic dreams that I heard from people when I started having mine were talking about how there's going to be like the threat of invasion of this country, so if not in fact invasion itself, but it's going to stop because of an alien invasion, whether it's a real one, whether it's a Project Bluebeam, whether it's craft that was designed by the military to look like actual craft that's designed by the military to look like alien spacecraft. I told you in a video like 3 years ago, Jackie had seen one in the woods behind my house, and she said it was about the size of, I don't know, maybe like a large high school. And she said the metal it was made out of is something she never saw before. And much like a previous video I heard from Zen about 10 years ago as well, where Credo Mutwa, who talks about the reptilians, he said that like, you know, and you gotta think about this like real quick, like when I say reptilian, technically not technically, but like the fallen angels live in the ocean. They're going to pretend like they're coming from the ocean, so they come out of the ocean way out, come from above, so it looks like they came from the sky, but they can't penetrate the dome. And if you read the Ascension of Isaiah, which I told everybody to read, it tells you that the demons live in a certain realm, like you got to figure, it's like the hierarchy, like above a certain level of demon lives in like the higher echelons of the dome, which is where like the Greek gods would be, if you want to call them that, because that's what they are. They're modeled after the fallen angels. So they're up here, and then like they also have kingdoms in the ocean, you know what I mean? I don't know if it's their summer place or what, but whatever it is, they have kingdoms in different areas. So when I say reptilian, a lot of people say they're aliens. Yeah, they're extraterrestrial, which means that they come from a place that is not terrestrial, this is terrestrial. Extraterrestrial is like from another place other than on the ground with us. Like that's what it means. You know, that's how it's spoken of. So when you say reptilian, I'm talking about an extraterrestrial, which is a being that could live on this earth, but mostly they live like in the ocean or above us, and they have high technology. And there are Christian archaeologists that actually talk about how they've found, you know, the Sumerian King's List type stuff, artifacts, that there were beings here before Adam ever fell from paradise. So how could that be? Because it says clearly that a day is as 1,000 years with the Lord. So we don't know how many thousands of years before Adam fell that the devil was cast out. I'm sure there's people that say they know, but in reality, even if you had the book in front of you that told you, you might be off by a couple thousand years or days or whatever. It doesn't, you know, we don't have God's word on it specifically, so you have to just kind of figure it out based on what you have for knowledge. And So going back, Jackie said that the craft that she saw didn't have normal metal that she's ever seen before as its outer shell. And when I say Jackie, I'm talking about my wife. And she said that when she thought of it, when she saw it, she thought Jesus in her head, and it disappeared at the speed of light, like it was just gone. And she knew it took off, like she could see that it like just went, but it was just so fast, like the movie Flight of the Navigator. You've probably seen that back in the day. So this also happened in the story from Credo Mutwa when there was reptilians that took this Mexican or Spanish woman to a cave with her child. They took her there and they were about to eat her child, and she screamed Jesus, and the thing couldn't do anything to it. They couldn't hurt them. They couldn't do anything to them after that. And Jesus said, I will give you the power to tread on snakes and scorpions. The snakes are the reptilians, the scorpions are the demons. And demons are the disembodied spirits of the giants, because when Enoch was given the declaration against the fallen angels and their children, that's what their punishment was, is that they're also mentioned as the Gregory. They're like this army of giants basically in the spirit realm, and some of them are like in prison and some of them are loose on this earth to cause havoc. It even mentions in the and basically it's almost like they're vampires. Like they can't eat, they can't drink, they don't enjoy anything, they're suffering all the time, and they cause problems here on this earth. And the people that are allowed to be bothered by them, some were the Israelites, as in the Testament of Solomon, the demons were bothering the children and things like that. Some of the people nowadays are people that are not protected by God, by Jesus Christ. And then that's why Jesus was casting them out constantly with his word alone. He was God. But in Solomon's day, he needed a ring to do it, which was given to him by God, because Solomon had a very direct connection with God at the time, where angels would visit him and like give him stuff and things like that, because he asked for wisdom instead of riches. So he got all the riches, but he asked for wisdom at first when he was a child king. So when he was given that wisdom, that's the Holy Spirit, which at the time, because the Shekinah glory was taken away from human beings early on, which is like this protection around you that like bugs can't even touch you, like it's just like this protection aura around you or something like that, that was taken away. And when Solomon asked for the Holy Spirit, it's like that, but without that aura thing. It was like he was protected, and he also had the garments of power, I believe, which allowed him to control the animals, control like the garments. I don't think gave him the power over the demons. I think the ring did, but he had literally like control over all the animals, all the demons. And then it says later when Jesus came that one greater than Solomon has come, because then you could just say, oh, he could rebuke demons. But he also, Jesus went into a cave as a child, like 3 years old. He could talk, and this is in the infancy gospel, and Jesus was like going into a cave, and the dragons came out. It's not like snakes, serpents. It was actual dragons came out of the cave, and they bowed down to Jesus Christ because he made them, and they acknowledged that. For some reason, Jesus in the ascension of Isaiah had to disguise himself through the different layers of heaven to like the different domes, which one is as great a distance as the other is from the other. So it's like very far from us. If our dome is like how many miles high, think about how high God's throne is. So that's why he says like the earth is his footstool, because it literally is. Like it's like his giant kingdom is at the top, and then he just puts his feet down and he's got his feet resting on our dome, which kind of is like putting your feet in ocean water if he was, because the ocean of heaven is above us. So anyway, so Jesus went into a cave, the dragons bowed down to him. He went into another cave when he was a little bit older, when he was back from Egypt and back in the in Israel. He went in a cave, and there was a bunch of lions in there, and he was playing with the baby cubs. Everybody thought he was going to get eaten, and he was fine. Jesus is in control of everything, and he still is in control of everything. And people are going to realize once, and I don't say this loosely, because I've mentioned how many times, like, I cannot picture how the rapture will happen, and it will be at a time when we don't expect it. But piecing together all of these different people's prophetic dreams that match mine from one specific channel that covers them all, I've started to realize that the only way that it makes sense for everything to really transpire is if the bride is taken away, and it makes more sense about the 5 virgins being left out of the kingdom, but 5 were taken in, and all this different stuff. And so if the bride is taken, then you're going to see what it was like you're going to remember what it was like here on earth when Jesus was here. He was here protecting everything and keeping everything safe, because as we leave, the demons are loosed upon the earth. And I've dreamed that many times in so many different ways where they're loosed upon the earth. And it's a horrible time. It's not just demons, it's like crazy stuff like werewolves and giants and huge demons you can't fathom, like things like that. So going back, Jackie had also seen, we were driving through Boston, and she goes, "Did you see that?" And at the top of like the Prudential Center, one of the tallest buildings in Boston, right before we went through the tunnel, it was a beautiful blue sky, not a cloud in sight. And she saw something that looked like the creature from Jeepers Creepers 2, which that movie is made by a Satanist. Go look it up. Like, the dude that made Jeepers Creepers, the movie, is a Satanist. And these Satanists, they have seen things that we don't see. There's a lot of people in Hollywood that, like, even when they sign pictures and they sign their name on things, they sign it to demons. Like, you would never even think that or fathom it. And like, what I'm saying, I'm not just making up. Like, I have picture proof of it, like showing you that they signed to certain beings, because you would like see them sign it to certain names, and you're like, who the heck would that be? Because it's not like a human name. And that's what it is. You go look up what the word is, and it's like different demons that they're acknowledging for their fame and fortune and things like that. And if you look into the Masonic order, which I don't get into that a lot because I don't like my focus to be on the Masons at all, but Jesus is the cornerstone, the stone of stumbling, the stone that the builders rejected, and the builders go back to Nimrod and they go back to Cain, and they're the builders that built like ancient Egypt and imprisoned the Israelites. And I just read, for some reason, I don't know why or how, and this is whenever I make mistakes, I promise that I would always mention that I made a mistake. And a lot of crazy stuff's been happening to me lately. I went back to the bookstore, and there hadn't been any books for a little while, and this is all going to make sense in a second, but I went back, and there was just only one book that was there. It was $8, and I looked at it, I was reading it, and I was like, I don't know if I'm going to get this or not. And it's called Looking for the Secret Book of Moses or something like that. I'll show you it later on a live show. But in this book, the guy who found the book found this ancient copy of the Bible years before the Dead Sea Scrolls, like in 1865 or something like that. He found a copy in a cave in like the area of the Dead Sea. He found an ancient copy of the Bible, like almost all the books or whatever. So, and everybody found was like, oh great, yay, and then they discredited him immediately. Why? They're trying to hide it. They're trying to hide Jesus Christ and God. Same reason they tell you the earth is a globe and it's spinning. And like I said a million times, and I hate being right all the time, is that when the aliens come down, pretending to be aliens, they're really just demons and fallen angels. Their spaceships are gonna be so huge, you're gonna see them from like one city to the other, and you're gonna realize there's no way that's possible on a globe, right? And it's gonna be self-evident. God's gonna like prove himself out, and by then, who knows if it'll be too late, because what if the people immediately get taken out of here in a rapture or something like that? And then people are like, oh, the aliens took them. Like, no, Jesus took his people, right? I'm just giving postulations. I'm not saying how it's gonna go. I'm just saying. So then So I'm at the bookstore and I'm like standing there and I'm like reading this book. Guy found the copy of the Bible in 1859. It actually got proven to be true, the books, because they found the Dead Sea Scrolls and it matched in 1945. Dude's work from back then got proven true, and they all never apologized, of course, but they revisited what he had learned and found out, oh my gosh, they all match and everything like that. And it's like a giant like mystery novel basically about how they found this copy back in the 1800s of the Bible in the caves as well. And then like I'm standing there and I'm like, there's this one book I'm holding and the rest of it I can just like tell. I don't know how I can tell. I just like looking at it, it's all garbage. I'm just looking at it, it's all garbage, like bottom shelf garbage, up and around top. Joel Osteen books, like Muslim books, Catholic books, all garbage, right? And this one book, and I'm holding this book in my hand, and I'm like getting chills, like just standing there with this book in my hand, and I didn't even want to buy it. I was like, oh, I don't know if I should spend $8 on this right now, blah blah blah, you know. And then I just like got chills, and I'm like, all right, I'm buying the book. So I bought the book. I'm reading a little bit of it, but it's weird that it was about like called Moses. It's weird because I guess somehow in my readings, I've only really read Jasher, the book, very briefly in audio form, and whatever parts of it are in Zen's books, because I confuse books sometimes, and I thought I had read it, but I really read Jubilees, not Jasher. So as I'm reading Jasher, I'm like, I'm listening to it while I'm doing some siding, and I'm like, sorry about the wind, it's like super windy today. So I'm listening to Jasher, and it turns out in Jasher that Moses, remember I told you guys that I had a dream about Noah and the 40 days of latter rain and all this stuff, and like everything in the Bible is 40 days, 40 days, 40 days, 40 days, which also can be years and things like that. So like the 40 years in the wilderness or whatever, I just read that in the Bible. Like the other night I opened to it in the Bible. All this has happened within a week. Found that book, open up the Bible, read it before I go to bed, and it's the story of Moses, the 40 years in the wilderness. Then I'm turning 40 years old on May 27th this month. I'm turning 40. I'm turning 40 a day before they make their final declaration for the World Health Organization to decide on whether we will all give our national sovereignty over to them to make decisions for the world. And I've said for I don't even know how long that Obama is going to rule the United Nations through, and now you can see it happening through the World Health Organization, which is basically like a serpent on a staff. And I told you guys I had a dream that Jafar was standing on a balcony with like the Sultan behind him, and he didn't have a parrot on his shoulder like he normally does in the movie, and he was standing there and spraying all this stuff with the snake staff. And then come to find out there's snake venom in the thing, and then also the person that took the thing was the dude that plays Iago the parrot from the movie Aladdin, and that dude just died from it recently. So it's just a little strange that like all this stuff is happening like right now. And in Jasher, Miriam, I believe, though, is his sister that had like prophetic utterances all the time. His sister, who told the mom to come breastfeed Moses so that he could be breastfed by an Israelite and not by an Egyptian. Miriam used to, like, they all called Moses a different name, and the name that Miriam called him was Jared, and I didn't know that, and I was like, what? I was like, almost fell off the roof when I heard that. And I looked at Jackie showed me the meaning of my name, like, and it's always like, I had a card my mom bought me when I was little. I put it in my Bible or something. It said, like, it means ruler or king or something like that. And trust me, I don't feel like that. So I was like, oh, okay. And then she showed me another one yesterday, and it said like shall come down, which is what Miriam said the reason she called him Jared, because remember in the days of old, Jared was one of the patriarchs, and when Jared was around is when the fallen angels came down, and so that's why his name was shall come down or whatever. And so same thing with Moses, she called him shall come down or whatever, however you say it, because he came down to save his people from wherever he was. He came back to the land to save his people, or he came down from heaven or whatever to save his people, however they say it in the book, I forget. So the other thing that's crazy that's in Jasher that I didn't get to hear before is the whole story of Joseph when his brothers sell him into slavery, and then after they sell him into slavery, they come back, and you have that back and forth where he tricks him, puts the gold in his thing, puts the money back in his bag, and then he takes the other brother, and he wants Benjamin to come and all that other stuff. But it's way more in depth than that. It's like way more in depth than that. It's like you find out that like how really fast Naphtali can run. You find out like that like the oldest brother, I forget if it's Levi or one of them, is so strong that he like crushed like 400 shekel rock or something like that with his thighs. Like he crushed it, and talks about like all the different things that, and then Joseph calls his son, and his son actually does the same thing that he did, and he's like, you couldn't have done that unless you're an Israelite. He's like, and he starts thinking, oh man, he might be an Israelite, and then he doesn't put two and two together for some reason. But then you also find out that Benjamin has the power to read the signs. The only reason that he reads the signs and figures out that Joseph is his brother based on where he is and where he would have been, because that power of the patriarchs was passed down through the book of the signs, through Noah and Enoch and all these things. And that is why they have, like, the Israelites have such sacred knowledge given to them by God, and that is, in my opinion, what has been hidden. Nobody wants the true Israelites to know their true power. They want them to think, they just play basketball and football and they're really good at it. Like Bo Jackson could like jump like a 30-yard gap. He walked up a wall. You've seen it on live TV. There's no other sports person that's ever really done what Bo Jackson did. And then he got haughty in his spirit because he got all these Nike ads and stuff like that. And then somebody like went to tackle him and pulled on his hip, and his hip busted. And that's what happened to Israel and Jacob, right? Or whatever, when he wrestled the angel, his hip went out of place or whatever. It just, like, little things like that is the way my brain thinks. And now Bo Jackson sits at his house and like makes arrows all day and shoots arrows because he's so depressed that he doesn't play football anymore. Because that's what God does. He like breaks you when you become too prideful. Because when you're prideful, that carries over into the next life. Your pride is something that you can't get rid of if you keep it with you. And that's why it's great when God humbles you and makes you to be nothing. Because you don't want to take that with you to be like in heaven in front of all these other angels and these like huge, massive angels in front of God, Jesus Christ, who humbled himself and came down and washed people's feet and healed lepers and like had no place to rest his head. You don't want to be in front of that guy who's now the King of all kings, who was the King of all kings. You don't want to be in front of him and you're like, yes, when I was in the earth, I blah, blah, blah. You don't want to be like that. You're going to look like an idiot. So it's great when God humbles you, in my opinion. It's a blessing. But people on this earth don't see things that way. People on this earth don't see things a lot of ways that they should. Like, everything's messed up and backwards. It really is. But that's just like a bunch of stuff I wanted to talk about because I've been like, had it happen to me recently and stuff like that. And like I told you, like my brother said, like he doesn't think I'm a prophet and stuff like that when he was like drunk talking to me the other night. And I'm like, fine, bro. I never said I was a prophet, and I never said I am a prophet. I'm just telling you some of the dreams I've had that were prophetic dreams of the future have already happened. Like, and I didn't even say that to him at the time. I'm just saying it right now. But like, I didn't ask to be telling you this stuff. It just is happening. I can't lie and say it didn't happen. You know what I mean? Like, the last thing that I honestly would want in this life is to be made to look like a fool, personally, in my humanness. I don't want that. But I have been made to look like a fool countless times, countless court cases with my ex, my kids, my brother, my parents. They all treat me like I'm a fool and I'm an idiot until the things happen, and they're like, oh yeah, we knew that. Like, happens to me all the time. You know, what I'd really like to do in my humanness is go build a cabin in the middle of friggin' nowhere, grow giant fields of pot, and smoke my brains out till I die. That's, for me personally, if I could just live without the knowledge of God, that's what I would do. I don't like people. I don't want to be around people. I can't stand people's pettiness. I can't stand, this world and the way that the monetary system is. I can't stand the hypocrisy of all people. I can't stand that people care about things that don't matter. I just can't. I can't hang with most people. It's just the truth. I'm just being honest. But in the Epistle of Barnabas, it says, do not put yourself away from people and act as if God has already pronounced you as holy. So I can't just go and live as a recluse somewhere and not share the knowledge I know with other people. That's why I do my show. That's why I tell my parents, even though they spit in my face basically all the time, and my brother and all these people. That's why I keep saying the same thing, because I'm not doing it for myself. I'm doing it for them because God told me to do it for them. You know what I'm saying? And I'm trying to have him say someday, like, good and faithful servant. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to get there and have him say, get away from me, I never knew you. But in the going back to the first part of this story with the giants and all the things that are going to be released on the earth, where God says, like, men's hearts will fail them and stuff like that, because they're already failing them right now with nothing happening except just normal everyday stuff. Imagine if there were wars and famines and pestilence and all this other stuff, and then demons come upon the earth. How do you think men's hearts will be working at that time? Because my ex, her boyfriend that she had at the time that was trying to take my kids away, he was messing with me and he had a heart attack. Literally had a heart attack. Her lawyer that was trying to hurt me and stuff like that originally had taken my kids away the first time and then was trying to do it again, his lungs collapsed the day before the trial, and now I don't even think he takes cases. He walks with like a cane and stuff like that. So if you don't take vengeance upon your enemies, God will take vengeance upon your enemies for you. Trust me. You should never. And I literally was preaching to the guy on his front doorstep as he's telling me I'm stupid and my show's stupid. And her boyfriend, and this is after he had the heart attack, he's like, and they go see mediums and stuff like that all the time, psychics and all that, which God said don't do. And he's saying all this stuff to me. Oh, I went to Oxford. All the stuff you're saying isn't true. I studied religion at Oxford or something, or whatever, some call it university or something like that. And I told you, seminary is dead. The concept of the canon is dead. It's a dead concept. If you have ever heard in the Bible where it mentions the canon itself, it doesn't. It never mentions the canon. It never mentions 66 books, except in code it says that there will be 66 books, because Isaiah has 66 chapters, and that proves that they will crucify Christ, which is the higher level meaning of God, which is why he says, blessed are you, son of Bar-Jonah, for flesh and blood didn't teach this to you, but my Father gave this to you, because Peter represents the church. So when he gave that knowledge to the church, God gave it to Peter, saying it didn't mean that Peter was supposed to be the one that becomes the bishop that passes it all down to the Catholic, popes and stuff like that, because if that was the case, we'd be screwed, because they're all Satanists, right? And they sacrifice kids and stuff like that, factually. So when you have that knowledge of the Christ level knowledge, you can read the Bible in a totally different way, and you can have an open canon, because you can say okay, this book has the keys in it, so I know that this book is valid. And it mentions, Robert talks about this, is that it mentions the gold that is tried in the fire. The gold is these books that are perfect and they were tried in the fire of this age, the fiery trials of this age is through time. They've made it through time, and they're still valid, and they're still prophetic. But then there's other books that are mentioned as silver. The books that are silver are books that were so badly damaged that we only have bits and pieces of them, like fragments of them, and yet they still can preach to you because you can use your knowledge to fill in the gaps of what it's trying to say based on the other scriptures that you have. And Robert teaches that in I think Unlocking the Epistle of James or something. So we all have pieces, where as the body of Christ, we all have pieces of this giant puzzle. I learned a lot of my original knowledge when I was waking up 10 years ago from Rob Skiba, who is now passed on, Zen Garcia, and Jonathan Kleck. And I don't agree with Jonathan. I didn't agree with Rob Skiba on serpent seed because he didn't believe in it, because I do believe Cain is Satan's son. Satanists believe that too. So you should probably learn what your enemy thinks to figure out if it's true. And then in the Super Gospel it says that it's true. And then in the Targums, the Palestinian Targums, the original translation of the scriptures, it says it's true. So 2 witnesses on our side, and the Satanists believe it. So make your decision however you want. Go look it up if I'm lying. It's on my TikTok. You can see, I read the text on my TikTok. You don't even have to go look for it. It's right there. It's labeled and everything. So Rob Skiba I didn't agree with on that. Everything else pretty much I did. He taught me that Obama is the resurrected Nimrod in the body, like the spirit of Nimrod, resurrected in the body of Akhenaten, and I believe that's what I've come to kind of figure out. So, and Nimrod, if you don't know, was 2/3 fallen angel. He was born part 1/3 fallen angel, so he was born that way. And then he did sex magic like Aleister Crowley and L. Ron Hubbard, who started Scientology. He slept with his sister, his mother, and his daughter, which that's why God said don't do that, because when you do that, it's like a satanic ritual. It's also in the movie, like 6 Days with Arnold Schwarzenegger or something. Satan has sex with this guy's daughter and his wife, and they blend and mold into his form or something like that. Why would they have that in that movie? It's like sick and twisted. But you don't realize later on that actually happened with Nimrod back in the day. I don't know if they molded into his form or whatever, but still sick and twisted. But so Zen, I have always agreed with everything that Zen has said, but I lately do not agree with the Bitcoin thing, because I've recently even heard that the CIA poised Bitcoin as a way to sort of take over the financial industry, and it's actually working. They now have ATMs where you can actually take cash out off of your Bitcoin account. So it's already happening that it's transferring over. And, you know, most of our money's digital anyway with the debit cards and everything. You get direct deposit. You never see cash usually anyway, whatever. But it's just, if they want it to go that way, they want it to go that way for control, full control of the masses and the people and the food and everything. That's why they're doing this. There's already no baby formula. They won't reopen the baby formula factories. I told you a long time ago that they changed the recipe in the baby formula. That's why you don't see very many masculine men anymore, because most women don't have time to breastfeed. This all was similar stuff that happened in ancient Egypt. They would do this to the women. And I told you that I read it in the Chronicles of Jeremiah, but I didn't realize it came from Jasher, that the women were afraid that their sons were going to be killed, so they used to give birth in the fields, and then the babies would live in the fields for like 3 years, and God would have their angel come and bring them two stones. One would give them milk, one would give them honey. And if the men would come and try to plow over the children in their fields, the earth would swallow them up and keep them safe underground, and their hair grew long to keep them in like a nest so they would be protected. And if you look at modern day black people, their hair would be like a nest if it grew that long to protect them and kind of keep them safe. And I told you I don't really give a flying hoot about race. I'm just saying, look at the people that are treated so unfairly in this world. right now and for the past hundreds of years. BLM is a satanic witchcraft movement to create hate and division amongst us. Like in the times of Israel, Caleb was not of Israel, but he was with them fighting the giants. And he was reckoned great among the people according to God's laws, not according to what his race was, according to the way he acted. And I believe that's a symbol that not all of us are going to be, a certain race or color. But when we follow God's laws, then, and when I say laws, I mean the 10 Commandments. I don't mean 610 laws of like doing certain things like to make yourself look holy. I mean, what's like the inside of the cup? Like, what kind of person are you on the inside? What's your right hand and your heart doing? That's what I'm talking about. Are you giving? Are you helping? Are you doing the right thing? Are you caring about other people? Are you feeding the people? And I mean spiritually feeding them. I don't mean with food, although you should feed people if they're hungry. I'm just saying, most of the people in this world that are preachers and pastors and deacons, they're always asking for money. And recently, in fact, right here on the highway where I am right now, I've been listening to the decay, which is the teaching of the 12 disciples. And in that, it teaches you how to baptize people correctly. It teaches you what the actual bad things not to do are, and it mentions abortion, it mentions sodomy, and it mentions pedophilia and things like that. It mentions all these things that are evil against God, but they were taken out because nobody reads the Didache. But if you read it, you'd realize all those things are evil. Why do you think the Catholic Church would take the Didache out of our knowledge when it is a Catholic book? Supposedly. It's our book that they stole. Right? And everything that I'm saying as it relates to Jesus being crucified, think of the crown of thorns that he wore. He didn't just wear that on the cross, he's worn that for 2,000 years. And the 2,000 pigs are the 2,000 years that were given over to the false Christians. And the demons were in that. Right? The demons were in the pigs. They were cast into the pigs. And then they were cast into the sea. Why did they fall into the sea? Because the sea is the age. And these are the keys that I'm talking about that let you unlock the Bible and let you realize which books are okay to read, whether they are even books that are just fragments and you can barely read the thing. If you see the keys in it, you know that it's true, and you should try to figure out what it's saying and if it can teach you something. And maybe there are gaps in your understanding that cause you to not understand Jesus in his fullness. I don't know. I don't know you, and I don't really know, what you and God's relationship is. I only know my own relationship with God, and it's not perfect. My relationship with God is not perfect. I don't know if it ever will be. I pray that it will be, but I have a lot of things that I struggle with. Sometimes in my mind I think evil things about people when I meet them, and I shouldn't. I just do. Sometimes I have unforgiveness that I have to pray and ask God to help me with, and it comes up all day long sometimes. Sometimes I struggle and I want to go smoke weed, I just don't. I haven't really been suffering that badly with pornography lately, but it's the first time in my life that hasn't happened. But trust me, all the other things and even the minor things are magnifying because of it for some reason. And like I said, it's not easy for me to say these things. I'm used to it now because I've done this for so long, but it's not simple for me to just bare my soul all the time. But I think it's important because there's so few men in this world that, number one, know about God enough to tell you what is good and bad about themselves. And most people don't care enough to tell you this kind of stuff. They're wouldn't even think about it. Just turn on music and take an hour, 20-minute ride to work. You know what I mean? But I really care about people's souls. I care about them. And sorry, going back to the beginning of what I was saying again, definitely read Jasher if you have a chance to, because it's pretty cool, the story of Joseph and his brothers in Egypt when he went back there. Also, if you have time, read the story of Joseph and Asenath, which is Joseph's wife that he met when he was in Egypt. That's a powerful story too. But in the medieval Irish Apocrypha, and Apocrypha means hidden, so remember in the I'll say this once if nobody heard it. Revelation says, to him who overcomes, which once you understand these things and what's been hidden, you do overcome them. It says in the Gospel of Thomas that you'll understand the beginning you'll understand the end once you understand the beginning. And the beginning is when Satan tempted Eve through sex and lust. First came adultery, then came murder, it says in the Gospel of Philip. So, Gospel of Thomas, the disciples asked Jesus, how will the end be? He says, how are you asking about the end? Do you even know the beginning yet? So, Revelation, the last book of the Bible, says, to him who overcomes, I will give to eat of the hidden manna. So once you overcome, you'll get to eat of the heavenly food, the manna, the hidden manna. And Apocrypha means hidden. Who is it hidden from? Well, if the Catholics are wrong and they worship idols, but they have books that we don't have, then if in their Bible it doesn't have the commandment about the idols, so they're wrong immediately, and they change the 10 Commandments, and they keep it in their Bible, the 14 apocryphal books, then they're hidden from us. And when I say us, I mean Peter, the Christian church. That's what I'm talking about. And Peter denied Jesus 3 times. The Christian church denied Jesus 3 times. The 4th century, 16th century with Martin Luther, because Martin Luther seemed like he's great, but he wasn't. He took books out. And there's no appendix, there's nothing that says, oh, just maybe read these. Even in the New International Version, in the back, it tells you about all these books, but then it says, well, we're not saying that Paul was endorsing these books. That is exactly what is being said. That is exactly the point. Paul is a prisoner because he is a prisoner. In your mind, you don't understand his writings. So that's why he's a prisoner, and you make him a prisoner. And if you go back and read all of his books with this insight, it will change your life. You'll fully understand Paul and what he really was saying in all of his books. And even Peter says, our dear brother Paul writes the same in all of his books. So when you hear people say Paul was a false prophet and all that, how could he be if Peter was endorsing him? And Peter was also endorsing Jude and defending Jude. And you can combine Jude and Peter, and it makes a third book that tells you even more information about how Enoch, 7th from Adam, prophesied, and how Michael, the archangel, which is mightier because he got Satan's power when Satan fell, does not bring a railing accusation against the devil in the presence of the Lord. So apparently they were in the presence of the Lord when this was happening, when they were fighting over the body of Moses. Why would they fight over the body of Moses if Moses is one of the 2 witnesses? Because he's not. He died at 120 years old, which was prophesied by the fact that Jesus said, I will not contend with man forever. His years will be 120 years. He was talking about Moses. So people say, oh, Moses is one of the 2 witnesses because he was on the Mount of Transfiguration. That's not what the Mount of Transfiguration is about. The Mount of Transfiguration is about the 3 testaments. James is the Jews who's portrayed by Moses on the mountain, who came from his time and went into the future to see Jesus on that mountain. Peter represents Jesus because Jesus and the Christians, and then Elijah, who is John the Baptist basically in spirit form or whatever, because Elijah is going to herald Jesus' second coming, and John the Baptist heralded Jesus' first coming. And so when John the Baptist says the axe is already laid at the root of the tree, that tree is the Jews, because they didn't believe in Jesus. And they took out all the writings, and they killed all the Christians, and they killed all the people because the Gnostics are all dead. So if the Gnostics are the ones that were being talked about as the ones that would be alive when Jesus comes, and they were the ones that crept into the church and unawares and all this stuff, they haven't done anything to the church. They haven't changed anything in the church. Those books were just dug up recently in Qumran in 1949 and stuff that are called Gnostic, which just means knowledge. And Jesus said, my people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge. So if that was in Greek, it would say, my people are destroyed for a lack of gnosis. So if Jesus was saying, my people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge, then why do they condemn these books? Because they are the thing that gives you the knowledge to know Jesus. That's the answer. And just like Jesus was dug up on the third day, his word, the Gnostic books and the 14 apocryphal books that are hidden in the Catholic Bible that are called hidden, that's what apocrypha means. To him who overcomes, I'll give to eat of the hidden manna. So most people read Revelation wrong too, and they think it's like this, and this. It's not. It's like a big book of time, and it's all about time and what the different churches will do. And the churches have done every single thing that it says in those things. And even some of the churches are called the same churches as the ones he's talking about. Like the different tribunals and things that happened in the 4th century that got rid of the books. You have forgotten your first love. You've forgotten this. Like all those things he says about the people, that's what they did. What is their first love? It's the books, the word of God. They took it out. So anyways, Peter denied 4th century, 16th century, and now. So what happened? Peter denied a third time, and then right after that, him and John start preaching the gospel together and get beaten by all the Jews and all that stuff. That is Peter becoming the true church, and that is John, the elect, who ran to the tomb to find out Jesus had risen. So the word rises, right? The word rises out of the ground, just like it did in the end times now. It rose out of the ground. The word Jesus rose out of the ground, and Peter, the church, and John, the elect, they run to the tomb to find out if it's true, and John gets there first. So if I found out first before all these churches find out, that makes me the elect. I'm not saying it, that's what it says in the Bible. That is who we are. It's named. I am named. You, if you believe what I'm saying, and Robert Farrell and Zen and all these people are the elect who find out first that Jesus, the Word of God, has risen from the grave. And then Peter, after he's denied for the third time, figures out he denied Jesus and that the rooster crowed, and then he starts preaching and giving all of his help to John, the elect. This is what's happening right now, guys. Like, you might see Johnny Depp's friggin' trial. You might see, all this evil crap happening around. You might see the war in Ukraine where they're like having all this evil stuff, or they've built 3 churches for, the Muslims, Christians, and Jews in Arabia or wherever they built it. And you might see all this stuff happening, but it is nothing. It doesn't mean anything. The way to defeat the archons, which are the fallen angels, as it's prophesied to happen in all the books that were removed, and in the Nag Hammadi codices, Jesus said, in order to defeat the archons, the way to defeat them is to preach this gospel, this one true gospel, the final gospel that will be preached before he returns. And you can speed his coming by preaching what I am telling you right now. And it is not hard to do. It makes perfect sense, but you have to read the books and you have to preach the books. And the books are the Word of God. So I hope that made sense. I hope everything I just said made sense. I know I rambled a bit. And the last thing I was going to mention is in the, it's kind of going back to the first part, but in the medieval Irish Apocrypha, a lot of it is stories about hell, people's first-hand accounts of going to hell. A lot of bad people, a lot of not that bad people that went to hell for different reasons, why they didn't fulfill what they were supposed to, so they went to hell. And in this place, one of the punishments, though, like the main punishments, if you could picture like certain torments being like a whole world, in this world there's a giant boar's head. It's gigantic. It's so big I can't put it in words how big this boar's head is. Maybe like the size, bigger than like the Twin Towers put together, basically. And all the lost souls get swallowed up into this boar's head, basically, and bad things happen to them inside, and then they're excremented out the backside and onto the next punishment. Hanging from the teeth of the boar, the tusks that come down from the boar, are two giants. And the reason they're hanging like that there is a testament of what the giants did by eating people and murdering people and hurting human beings and all these things. And that's what I'm talking about, is the Grigori, the giants that were the children of the fallen angels. They, at the time, their judgment was that they would only be able to live for 500 years from when that judgment was cast till the end. And the last giant alive was Og of Bashan, and he was alive later when Israel was capturing the land back. And Og of Bashan promised to help Noah. He did for a little bit. Then he helped Abraham, and then he betrayed Abraham, and then he became like their enemy, and he started having children that took over these lands. And that's why in the Bible God said, don't let one man, woman, or child live. They were worshiping idols, and they were worshiping the fallen angels and stuff like that, because that was their parents, and their DNA was changed, and if they had been allowed to live, they would have genetically manipulated everything too much during the process of our current timeline. So a lot of people say, oh, God murdered all these people back in the Old Testament. Number one, that people don't know what they're talking about because they don't know the truth. And number two, God has the right to kill anyone that he wishes to kill. So many people are, fighting for their right to kill their own child right now, but they're not even God. So that's people saying that they're above God. God is the one that breathes life into all human beings. God is the one who created all human beings. And God has the final say of where you're going to end up forever. And he paid the price to allow you to escape all those things if you choose him. But by choosing him, you need to forgive your enemies and forgive even your friends. I mean, sometimes one's harder than the other, but we need to live as Christ lived. It's not a free license to just go and live an immoral life and do whatever you want, be like the world. Once saved, always saved is not the truth. And so many people fight me over that online. It's incredible. It is incredible that people think that they can do whatever they want and God will just forgive them. I'm not saying that you're going to be perfect all the time. That's not the point. You're never going to be perfect. You're never, ever going to be perfect. I'm telling you, I'm not. But I'm also saying that you need to try. You need to try to be like Christ and try to emulate his life and try to be an example where your neighbor feels so bad because of the way you live that they can't help but try to be righteous too. That's what we should be like. So I hope that made sense. I hope that this blesses your life. All of you that are my friends and family on here, I love you and I thank you. And I pray for you all the time. Jackie and I pray for you. And I pray that you never think that I think anything great about myself, because sometimes I struggle to just wake up in the morning, to be honest. But the reason that I do is because I know there's people out there that, Jesus loves and I love, and I don't want you to feel like you're alone, because you're not. But I hope it's beautiful where you are. It's really pretty here in New Hampshire. I'm not sure if you can see it, but flip the camera around. Pretty nice. This is Canterbury, New Hampshire. This is the only exit between these two exits that has all pine trees. The rest of it is beautiful maple trees. I went horseback riding when I was in high school down this exit on the right here, exit 18. But yeah, see it, all the leaves are coming in right now, so it's really pretty. And this is just the highway. It's much prettier on the side roads and stuff like that. But anyways, not a cloud in the sky. But God bless you guys, and thank you for tuning in today. I hope you have a fantastic day, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.